Mike's here, check, check. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We will call this Riverside City Council meeting for Thursday, December 19, 2024 to order at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Denning?
Here.
Ms. Fry?
Here.
Mr. Joseph? Ms. Lomach?
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield?
Present.
Mayor Williams?
Here. Motion to excuse our absent member.
Motion excuse.
Second. We have a motion from the Deputy Mayor and a second from Mr. Brown. All those in favor of excusing Mr. Joseph from this evening signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Mr. Manager, any additions or omissions from the agenda as presented?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. If you're able, please join us to rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. On our agenda this evening, we have a presentation from a member of our Parks and Recreation Commission, and I'll turn it over to the city manager to talk a little bit about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll introduce Ms. Moore, our service director, and Mr. Brom, who is the chair, I believe, of the Parks and Recreation Commission, with a brief presentation about some things that the commission has been discussing with respect to Roar Park.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor and council members, for letting us speak this evening on our proposal. We appreciate it. And I'm Ron Brom, Parks Commission Chair, and I get to talk about fun stuff, parks. And we've been researching and considering many different things for Roar Park. A while back, of course, the facility burned down, and that presented an opportunity not only to fill the space, but the insurance funds, which were earmarked for parks equipment. And so here we are now, and we've done many different studies of different types of equipment to bring in. The park is in very good shape. It has playground equipment. I believe toddler equipment is coming. And the park needs somewhat of a feature equipment. And this is a kids park. Kids and teenagers, when I make my programs and take them up to the parks and put up the posters, you know, I get a feel doing that periodically throughout the year for the type of park it is. And there's always kids on their bikes riding around. And there's teenagers. But I notice, you know, the kids on bikes have no constructive thing to do. And what does idle time do? It's not good. So fast forward, y'all had your Focus Town Hall meeting. And it was just randomly about a day or two after that, I was going around putting up the new park programs on our outdoor bulletin boards. And I decided to walk over to the structure, the plat, the foundation, measure it off a little and just survey the concrete, how good of shape it was in, and then brainstorm any ideas. And when I turned around, there was about 18 to 20 kids on their bikes basically circled me. They were super polite. One of them even asked me for it, "Sir, could you give me a job?" But they were like 8 to 14 years old. And I said, well, and they said, what are y'all going to put there? What are you going to do? I said, well, I'm glad you're here. What do you want here? What are y'all thinking of? Would you want frisbee golf? No. Pickleball? No. Because they're kids, okay? And then they just started chanting bike park, pump course. And that is what they want. They even made a compelling argument to me that, hey, we have to bike kind of pretty far to this dangerous homemade type pump track, BMX type thing. And they said it would be so much safer if we had something right here, and it would work perfect right here. So I told them, hey, we'll take that. We want your input, your citizens, and I will look into this. So I started researching, and I found because bike parks can cost $3 million. We have one of the best ones in the country by UD. It's phenomenal, but they're concrete, they're bringing the excavation, the dirt and everything. But the newest thing, the newest trendy thing, and we will be on the cutting edge. I was telling Beth, I had a recent interview for the Parks Department at Beaver Creek, and I was talking with the Director of Parks and Recreation. I just mentioned, what we were thinking. His eyes got real big, and he was like jealous because nobody really has this. And it's a modularized, which means they're put together in sections, and of course, save on labor because it's built for any service department or park department put together in 8 to 12 hours is what they say. And then that lowers the installation cost. But a pump track, if you're wondering what it is, and you can look at the demonstrations here, it's essentially, technically, a pump track trains riders how to go around the track and pump their body to where they don't even have to pedal. And this helps, number one, it's fun, people like to do it, just the entity itself is a feature. But they may want to go on and join a BMX team. I wrote a story recently on the BMX club in Richmond, which comes all around, and they have teams for young kids all the way up. They'll probably come and check this thing out if we get it. But it gives them something constructive to do. It's fulfill the demand because that's what they want. And even on the town hall, one of the last thing was a bike park. Now, this is a fraction of the cost, and Beth can go over the numbers on the cost, but it's comparable to a playground set. And we have a good playground set. We have good stuff there. We have a walking path, and this would be a cutting edge, ahead of the curve feature that could parlay into, I talked to the gentleman who, up in Seattle, who was what we thought the only one in America. But they have teams in their high schools, and these things are featured a lot in their parks for kids to practice on, have fun, and train on. So after all the things we've submitted in the past in the different nature play centers, the whole gamut, I'm a writer, so I research a lot, and the rest of the people on the Parks Commission also sent in their suggestions. This is even before Beth took over, and by the way, she's doing a phenomenal job. And so we really think this is the best bang for the buck. Yeah.
Happy to answer any questions, or we're within our insurance budget. We'd be looking at a 12-week delivery time. It'd be coming from the West Coast, and once it arrives, our team would install it. And we would also plan on kind of surrounding that area with a chain link fence, just to kind of keep that area separate. That way no motorized vehicles end up on the course. But it's completely tamper-proof. It's made of the same kind of material as outdoor playgrounds.
And Beth negotiated a customized proprietary security lock system in between each of the 10-foot modules. So they
It's
can't
like tamper-proof
tamper with
hardware.
it or try to take it home or something. So it's solid, and it would be anchored into the concrete also.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it on a concrete pad then? It wouldn't be on
Yeah,
grass?
the
On the concrete
The
pad.
concrete pad is there.
That's big enough to put it on?
From the fire.
Okay.
So the existing foundation from the pavilion
Yep.
would be where,
Where it is. Mhm.
thank you.
Do we know what the lifespan of the material?
Similar to like an outdoor playground where you're looking at, depending on the winters, but anywhere from 15 to 25 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So, once it's in, it's there. I mean, if we ever had to move it, we could, but it's easy to handle. It's made to be outside. It's made for kids from ages 4 on up, so.
So if we, if we find that this really catches on and the kids really like it and use it, is it possible to take that and expand it larger?
Oh, yeah.
And so it's similar to, I don't know, racetrack, it snaps
Think
together
of
and
like your
you
Hot
can make it
Wheels
into.
track. Yeah.
Hot Wheels track,
Yeah,
yes.
like slot car racing, except for bicycles, so you can change it and make it bigger and smaller or
Yes.
whatever you need to
They
do.
have many different models, and Beth was negotiating to get one with the on and off ramp.
Right.
Which, and this one does have the on and off ramp, which is just, for very beginners, makes it much easier and conducive to people just, I don't want people to pull in there and go, what is that? All the kids will know, they'll be on it, riding around it. And I just think it'll be an exciting feature when people come into the park.
I just want to make sure that we can make it bigger if we want to.
We can make it
That's-
bigger.
That was my,
We
because
chose-
if it's something that the community really likes, and there are places that I'm sure that if we needed extra funding to make it, because it was a positive for our community, we could find organizations that would donate money to help it make it bigger and better if that's what we chose to do.
And on the West Coast where they're more popular now, it's just gaining popularity. They have permanent ones in parks, but they also have, parks will buy them for their different festivals.
Right.
And they'll have them for the festival and take it down and put it on
Right.
the next festival. So I think it's the newest next best thing.
No, I think it's a good thing.
That's great.
Any further questions on this proposed
What's the
improvement?
liability
It's the same, we would perform.
for all
sa-
the park?
Yeah, same as like a playground. We do, our certified playground inspectors inspect it. It's very similar hardware material, so it's right up our alley to inspect and maintain.
And it's gonna be less dangerous than a skate park.
Gotcha.
Skate, and it's really a hybrid of a little bit of everything together. Skate park, scooters, little kids, their big wheels, BMX bikes, mountain bikes, can ride on it. I'm a mountain biker and I'm gonna do it. You guys pass it and we get it, but it's a hybrid of everything, really.
So just in conclusion, I think, I just want to thank Beth and Ron and everybody on Parks as well for all the hard work that they put into this. This is, I think, the outcome of a conversation that's been many, many months in the making, as they talked about. And as we've been talking about with respect to the budget conversations, the budget that you're voting on this evening has money in place to make this capital expenditure, so we've already planned ahead for that. And Beth, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but the next step, assuming the budget passes and we get into next year, is we would likely have some legislation approving the purchase, and then we would get the order in. But we would look to have this in place basically as soon as possible, early next year, correct?
Yeah, 12-week delivery time, so we'll get the order in January. It'll arrive, the guys will install it, and then we'd like to have like a nice little ribbon cutting party in the park in the spring.
I want the media there. Maybe we can get a professional BMX guy. Do some tricks.
The communication manager might take the lead on this as well.
Sounds like Memorial Day weekend.
That's right, a lot of opportunity, there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
That's exciting.
Appreciate your time, and let's let the kids have some fun.
Well, thank you. We will move along on our agenda. If there's any citizens joining us this evening who wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, they can always grab a slip in the back of this room and turn it into the clerk. We will move along to the minutes. We have all had a chance to review the minutes from our December 5th council business meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as published?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from the Deputy Mayor to approve the minutes as published from December 5th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, have we had any slips turned in to comment on agenda items this evening?
No.
All right, not yet. So, having no slips turned in to make public comment on agenda items, we will move into our unfinished business, of which we have 5 ordinances that have their second reading, public hearing, and potential adoption. So get comfortable, folks. The first ordinance 24-0859. Mr. Manager, there's going to be some thematic themes that run throughout this next part of the meeting, but why don't you begin that for us?
This is the second reading and potential adoption of the fiscal year 2025 budget.
All right.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from the Deputy Mayor. The city charter allows for the reading of an ordinance to be done by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 240859, an ordinance to make permanent appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Riverside, State of Ohio, for the period January 1 through December 31, 2025.
I will now open the public hearing for ordinance 24-0-859 at 6:17 PM. If anyone wishes to speak on this ordinance, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no one and hearing no one come forward, we will close the public hearing for ordinance 24-0-859 at 6:17 PM. Is there any further comment from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Denning?
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Fry?
Yes.
Ms. Lomatch?
Yes.
Mayor Williams?
Yes. Our second of 5 ordinances this evening is a supplemental. Mr. Manager, anything you need to add before we begin?
Only that there were very minor changes to the exhibit, which I emailed council about earlier this week. The changes are mostly because when we get pass-throughs, like a grant or a loan, even though we never receive that money directly, we have to show them on our books, and that's the bulk of the additions that were added on the exhibit.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Brown. City charter allows for the reading of an ordinance to be done by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 240860, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Riverside, State of Ohio for the period January 1 through December 31, 2024.
I will open the public hearing for ordinance 24-0-860 at 6:18 PM. If anyone wishes to speak on this ordinance, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no one come forward and hearing no one, we will close the public hearing at 6:18 PM. Is there any further discussion among members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Denning?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Fry?
Yes.
Ms. Lomatch?
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield?
Yes.
Mayor Williams?
Yes. Our third of 5 ordinances this evening is the first of 3, Mr. Manager, if
Yes,
I'm
and
correct?
with your indulgence, I'll just briefly explain these. I'll actually maybe go backwards.
Limited
because
indulgence.
I think it's easier to understand, hopefully. So if you look at 863, Ordinance 863, which is the third ordinance of these 3, I want to be very clear. The total amount that we will issue in debt, assuming these ordinances pass for Right Point, is $6,390,000. That is the total amount. I know we had some questions a couple weeks ago about whether or not it was actually 12 million. It is not 12 million. It is about 6.4 million. Of that 6.4 million, there are 2 pieces. So Ordinance 862 is about 4.4 million, which is the debt that we've been carrying on the buildings. That's kind of like your mortgage. Ordinance 861 is an additional 2 million, which is kind of like a home equity loan, for lack of a better example, that we will use to finish the capital improvements, particularly in the restrooms. So it's 3 ordinances that are a package. The total amount of debt will not exceed $6.4 million.
And how many, do you know approximately how many bathrooms we will be redoing?
5 in total. So it would be the first and third in this building, the first, third, and fourth in the other building.
Okay.
And that is a function of the ADA, which basically says you should have an accessible restroom within 1 floor. So we'll do every other floor effectively.
And additional improvements besides just the bathrooms too.
Correct, like the roof on the roof work has already begun, HVAC work, outside tuck pointing, window seals.
So it's just not $2 million on 5 bathrooms.
Correct. That-
People were asking that.
Yes, it's part of yes, it will ultimately go to support all the capital developments. But the restrooms will probably be the last thing that we actually tackle early next year, about the time that this is actually issued.
Okay. Do we have a motion on ordinance 24-0-861?
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion for Ms. Lomach and a second for Mr. Brown. The city charter allows for the reading of an ordinance to be done by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 240861, an ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $2 million building improvement special obligation bond anticipation notes, Series 2025, by the City of Riverside, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds, providing for the pledge of revenues for the payment of such notes, and declaring an emergency.
I will now open the public hearing for ordinance 24-0-861 at 6:22 PM. Anyone wishing to speak on this ordinance can come to the podium, state their name and address for the record, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no one come forward and hearing no one, we will close the public hearing at 6:22 PM. Is there any further questions among members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Lomach?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Denning?
Yes.
Ms. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield?
Yes.
Mayor Williams?
Yes. The next two ordinances, as the manager pointed out, the next ordinance is the next one in the sequence, the 4.39 million bond issuance.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from the deputy mayor. This is ordinance 24-0-862, just for the record. The city charter allows for the reading of an ordinance to be done by title only unless a member of council requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 240862, an ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $4,390,000 building acquisition and improvement special obligation bond anticipation notes, 2025 renewal by the City of Riverside, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds, providing for the pledge of revenues for the payment of such notes, and declaring an emergency.
I will now open the public hearing for ordinance 24-0-862 at 6:23 PM. Anyone wishing to speak on this ordinance may come to the podium, state their name and address for the record, and we ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Hearing no one and seeing no one come forward, we will close the public hearing for ordinance 24-0-862 at 6:23 PM. Is there any further concerns or questions or discussion among members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Denning?
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Fry?
Yes.
Ms. Lomach?
Yes.
Mayor Williams?
Yes. And the final ordinance, which is the culmination of the previous two, ordinance 24-0-863. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion for Mr. Denning and a second for Mr. Brown. The Riverside City Charter allows for the reading of an ordinance to be done by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 240863, an ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $6,390,000 building improvement special obligation bond anticipation notes, Series 2025, by the City of Riverside, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds, providing for the pledge of revenues for the payment of such notes, and declaring an emergency.
I will open the public hearing for ordinance 24-0-863 at 6:24 PM. Anyone wishing to speak on this ordinance can come to the podium, state their name and address for the record, and please keep their comments to 3 minutes. Seeing no one and hearing no one, we will close the public hearing at 6:25 PM. Are there any further questions or concerns among members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Denning?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Fry?
Yes.
Ms. Lomach?
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield?
Yes.
Mayor Williams?
Yes. We will now move into new business, of which we have 5 resolutions. The first resolution, Mr. Manager, would you please give us a brief summary of this?
This is the grant Ms. Moore discussed at the previous meeting from the Source Water Protection folks that allow us to build our sanitary sewer line at 1791 Hirschman.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Lomach and a second from Mr. Denning. All those in favor of Resolution 24-R-2996, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Our next resolution, Mr. Manager?
Next resolution is the asset management policy for the city. This is a customary housekeeping thing that cities have. The major thing that we're seeking within this policy is that we would raise or amend our asset thresholds to be more in line with what our peers use these days. That would be, an asset would be anything that is $5,000 with a 3-year lifespan or more. And that will help us better establish what our current assets actually are according to that threshold, and then track them more effectively in the future.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from the Deputy Mayor and a second from Mr. Denning. All those in favor of Resolution 24-R-2997 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Our next resolution, Mr. Manager?
I'll actually tee up the next two. So 2998 and 2999 are basically housekeeping renewal agreements with Colliers. The first is for property management services, and the second is for commercial listing or leasing services. The major substantive change is that on the leasing side, we have also added a clause in the event of a sale of the buildings with a market competitive commission.
All right, so do we have a motion? The first resolution is 2998. Do we have a motion for that?
Move to approve.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor of Resolution 24-R-2998 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And do we have a similar motion for
Motion to approve.
two? So we have a motion from the Deputy Mayor and a second from Mr. Denning for Resolution 2999. Any discussion or any questions before I speed right through this? I feel like I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm like on a BMX bike, and I'm over it right now, and I'm looking down, wondering, why did I not slow down earlier? All right, all those in favor of Resolution 2999 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And the final resolution, Mr. Manager.
And the final resolution, which in a complete coincidence, is that we're ending the year on Resolution 3000, which I think is an accomplishment.
If it passes.
If it passes. This is also housekeeping. Before we let a major project out to bid, ODOT requires final adoption of legislation from council. This is final legislation for the Woodman Phase 1 project, which is from the New Bridge up to Eastman, and will let ODOT bid that project in January.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Brown and a second from the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor of Resolution 24-R-3000 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We're on to public comment for non-agenda items, and I will, for the final time this year, ask the clerk if there's been any slips turned in to comment on non-agenda items from any members of the public with us this evening.
There have been no slips turned in from any member of the public this evening.
Yet. Okay. All right, thank you. The city manager's report, which is always informative but always brief.
Always brief. So just wanted to bring to council's attention, and it follows on the heels of discussion, that we've had a couple times recently. If we keep the current meeting cadence, our next meeting would be scheduled for January 2nd, which I would advise you all to move anyway, just because it's January 2nd. Having heard some of the discussion at the last couple meetings about potentially moving to Mondays, I think for the benefit of staff and the public, we would ask for somebody to make a motion about when to set the organizational meeting for
I
next year.
would like to make a motion for January 6th for our organizational meeting.
And that would be a Monday,
Monday.
to clarify.
Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to have our organizational meeting on Monday, January 6, 2025. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And that is enough for us to essentially have that meeting published properly, publicized, I should say,
Correct. Yeah, we
meeting the
will-
publishing requirements.
Yes, yeah. So we will then proceed with the January 6th at the normal meeting time of 6
6
PM.
p.m.
The only other things that I had to add really were just a reminder for the public that city offices are closed December 24th and 25th in observance of the Christmas holiday and January 1st for New Year's. We will have a bit of a skeleton crew on the other days that week, so we will have normal business hours on those days as well. But I hope everybody has a very safe and relaxing holiday season. And many, many thanks to our staff for all the hard work that they've done all year long, which has gotten us to, I think, a very, very good place to be going into 2025. And I'm very excited to see what luck we might make for ourselves next year. So, and thank you to all of you for your support as well. That's all I have.
All right. Well, we will then move into council member comments, and I will start with Ms. Lomach.
Okay, I have two comments that I would like to bring to the attention of the council and the public. And I think in recent developments in the history of what's going on in schools today, that it would behoove this council to consider a second resource officer, so we can have someone full-time at the high school and someone else who could serve the other buildings. I don't think that we can afford not to do that. The school is interested in doing that as well. They would like to have a second SRO. And the other issue that it came to my attention, as some of you know, I've spent a lot of time down in the Cincinnati area in the last 2 weeks. And they've come up with a program, and I spoke briefly with the city manager today. He tells me we don't have any place to do this, but maybe we could look around. But Cincinnati has established a program where if you have someone in your home, if you're a gun owner, and you have someone in your home that you have concerns about mental health, or the fact that you have a gun in your house, that you can store your gun with Cincinnati police for 6 months at no charge. I think in the community we live in, I come from a gun family. I don't personally have a gun, but I do know that that's becoming an issue nationally. And I would like for us to consider with the police department if there would be some way we could offer that kind of service to our citizens, that if they're concerned about the safety of the gun in their home, that they have the ability to bring it to the city, and the city could hang on to it and get it out of their home.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on to Mr. Brown, second best dressed guy here tonight.
I'll take that second place.
Yours doesn't light up.
No, mine don't light up,
Yeah.
so that's why it's second.
We really were expecting more out of you, Andy.
I thought we were going to talk about Kim. So.
Yours is good, too. No comments other than just Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. And everybody have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I'll certainly echo those sentiments. I'll thank Brenda for another successful blood drive earlier this month. I have on the socks that they gave me.
Oh,
I have on
yeah.
Christmas
Me too.
socks at least. And also share the city manager's thoughts about the progress we made in 2024, and then certainly the potential in 2025. And I think as a city, we're getting past the point where we talk about potential and we're just talking about projects that are up and running. So it's a very exciting thing, considering where we maybe were a couple New Years ago, looking into a fresh year and hoping for things to happen. And now I think Josh and his staff is probably wondering where they're going to find the time to get all these things done that are happening. So it's great to see this momentum continue, and I think we're done talking about potential and we're just talking about projects. On to the Deputy Mayor.
Happy holidays, Happy New Year to everyone. Also, thank you, staff. Thank you, City Manager. Appreciate all the hard work that you all have put in over this year, and look forward to all the great things that are going to happen next year. I know that you guys have put a lot of work in, a lot of effort in to set ourselves up for a lot of successes in 2025. So thank you.
Ms. Fry?
Well, this being the last meeting of the year, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone. I hope everyone has a very safe and happy holiday season. I know I really enjoy the downtime with my family, and I hope everyone gets that opportunity with theirs. I also wanted to share a piece of exciting news that I don't know has been widely distributed yet, But St. Mary Development Corporation is entering into a partnership to redevelop 5 properties in the area, and one of them is Mad River Manor. And so I'm very excited about that. I have, a warm place in my heart for that particular property. It serves a lot of members in our community, including some members of my own family who previously lived there. So very exciting to see the investment in our community, and wanted to share that news.
Let me just quickly shoehorn in, congratulations to St. Mary's Development Corporation Executive Director Tim Beat, who's retiring this month and has done a tremendous job for the region, and as well as the city of Riverside. And he, I think, were you on the email that he shared with us, some of that information? He shared an email with me about Mad River Manor, so I was excited. This is the first major investment in that property in 45 years. So it's really exciting to see, and an entity like St. Mary's is one that does a lot of work that needs done, and not many groups can do it. So we're very thankful for that, and thank you, Tim Beat, for your years and years and years of service to those populations.
Property on Harshman is the St. Mary's.
Yep,
property.
they built that one
Yeah.
in 2009, maybe, or
Well,
about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So they've been investors in our community and partners in our community, and I thank you, Brenda, for mentioning that, and I just wanted to say thank you to my good friend Tim. So, on to Mr. Denning.
Well, I also want to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone, and Happy New Year. And I would like to tie on to the mayor's comments, is that most of what we're seeing as potential and projects now would not have happened if we had not brought Josh on board, and he brought his team on board, and everybody is working together to make this happen. So thank you very much, Mr. Roush and team, because that's what makes it happen. It's not one person, it's a team effort, and we see that, and that's I think I talked about it at the last meeting. It makes our job easier if we trust the people that are doing the job, and we do that, and we put our trust in you, and until we can't. But we do appreciate that, and we thank you for that. Also, I miss Santa again. He was on the fire truck, and he
We
rode
told you a
around
month ago
town.
what date it was going to be.
And I know that there was, the first night, they didn't make it into your neighborhood because there was a big accident on Valley Street, but it was quite exciting from what I understand. There were a lot of people. We need to get the people in Forest Ridge to come out a little more. I mean, we had people, there were people coming out in the neighborhoods.
So you heard.
So I heard.
Yeah.
But it was quite interesting, and that they went through the Valley Platte, they went through Byesville the next night, Overlook. They visited Overlook, and there were lots of people, and unfortunately,
You slept through all of it.
I missed it.
His alarm went off.
And I kept missing it. And unfortunately, the second night, the battery died on the speaker, and they didn't have music, but Santa was still there waving, and everybody was happy. So I I want to thank the fire department for doing that. And whoever plays Santa, they're doing a pretty good job. But we want to thank the fire department for making that happen. I think we started that, I think this was our 3rd or 4th year, and I think it's becoming more positive, and it brings out the positiveness in the community, and that's what we need more than anything is positive in this community. And I think that's the perfect way to end this year, is on a positive note with all the positive things that are going our way in the future. So, and to the rest of the council, happy holidays and have a happy new year.
Happy New Year. I will call this meeting adjourned at 6:40 p.m., and we'll see you in 2025.